Welcome back, everybody, to this video. So we're going to be looking at transfers today, and we're going to be looking at applying transfers. Now, all other videos, if you've been to my channel before, all other videos, I basically start straight off, show you what we're going to be painting, and then we go paint them. But I'm going to start this video in a slightly different way today. So a few months ago, 4 months ago, in fact, I painted a Ultramarines Space Marine. And I made a comment, and the comment was this. So basically, in it, I said, you can't add transfers without doing a gloss varnish first. So in fact, somebody quoted me on the comments on this post. So they said, you can't add transfers without gloss varnish. Anyone who says you can is wrong. So I said that on a video. Now that caused a number of people on the comments of that video to become quite disgruntled. And since then, I've been thinking about the best way that I can approach a video about showing you guys how to apply transfers. And there's a couple of things that I want to go through. And this comment here, you can go below on that Ultramarines video and have a look at the comment. But I did want to address it because I think it's important where people comment on videos, we don't get into an argument about it. We have a sensible discussion, but also I have an opportunity to kind of show you what I mean as well. And it's taken me 4 months to get to it, but I've got some time to be able to do it. And this person went on and they said, well, I've been using transfers on all sorts of models for 40 plus years and I've never used gloss varnish. So yeah, you can. Okay, so that was the comment. And I don't really want to get into an argument with people. People can do it however they want to. But essentially, we had a bit of back and forth. And I said, look, can you link me to some of your work? And they did exactly that. So I don't think they had Instagram from what I remember, but they linked me to an Imgur file, and I went and had a look at the models, and they were really good. But this is what I said in regard to the transfer. So it says, looks awesome, mate, but I say there are consistency issues with the transfers on the larger knight. In the main, it looks good, but I think you should consider my suggestions. You want them to look painted on. Some of your transfers do look painted on. Some I can clearly see the ring around them, as well as some other issues. To be honest, it's your hobby, mate. Do transfers however you want. I don't mind. But if you want consistency in your results, do it the way I suggested. If not, then that's cool too. Peace and love. I don't want to get into an argument about these things, but I'm not suggesting that you do things for my own good health. I'm suggesting them because they're tried and tested. Now, again, what I don't want is any controversy in the comments of this video as well. You can do your transfers and apply your transfers however that you want to do them. It's I don't really mind, but I'll show you some videos or some pictures later on, and then the video after this to show you how to do the transfers, and then you'll see kind of the results that we can create. It wasn't just that person though who was who kind of made a comment on the video and kind of took umbrage with the fact of what I said. So this person as well. So it says, sorry to argue, but yes, you can. I have proof on my own minis that have had decals applied without any prior varnishing being done. And then again, we had some back and forth. I basically asked them for their Instagram handle because, if somebody can prove me wrong and you can do it a different way to how I do it, and if you can do it with less steps, then all the better, really. Right? If I'm all open for learning new things. So I asked them for their Instagram handle, etc. And kind of this is the conversation that we had. Anyway, I said, link me to your Instagram. I'd love to see your models and be proven wrong. I went on and said, I'm also being genuine about that. I can get transfers to be seamless and look painted on. I do this using a combination of gloss varnish and decal products, and I showed it and demonstrated it in the video. The gloss varnish has had the benefit of protecting my paint job throughout this process. Please feel free to link me with any photos you have, and would love to see a seamless transfer without these processes being used. Every day is a school day, and then etc. etc. I went on and kind of explained the previous comment to this gentleman, and he eventually linked me. He said, look at my Flesh Terror stuff at the bottom, and I went and did that, and he said that he used Microset and Microsol. Okay, so I went and had a look, and anyway, we had a further back and forth on that, and then as you can see, I gave this person a sub. So this is what my response was. So just gave you a sub. Stuff looks awesome. Well done. So I can see from the images you've done a good job with the transfers, and certainly the Microset and Microsol has helped to adhere the transfer to the model. From the camera phone images, and some are going back to 2018, I can tell where the imperfections are in the transfers in your work, but I think it's best I rephrase my statement. You will be more successful when applying transfers over a gloss varnish. The area will be smooth and flat, and will not have the irregularities you get with painting with an airbrush or a hairy brush. Furthermore, it will protect your paint job underneath, so you have no fear when applying transfers that you will damage the underlying paint. To be honest though, mate, if you're happy, I'm happy. I'm confident in my methodology and skills when applying transfers. I just want to make a free video to help educate people about the way I paint it. If you do it differently, then that's cool. Blah, 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 blah. And he kind of went on like that. And then this gentleman responded and he said, I'm happy with that. Those models were done a fair few years ago and there wasn't as abundant information on how to do this or that. I to some extent would slightly disagree with that. I think 2018 there were plenty of videos going around about how to apply transfers, but okay. And he says, I'm thankful for the sub and thumbs up for my work. I love your stuff. And he stopped, yeah, etc, etc. So it was all good. It didn't descend. We could be grown-ups and didn't descend into an argument, but I did rephrase kind of what I said in the video. Perhaps I was a bit too strong with what I said, but I still stick to my guns, which is that the process that you guys are going to see in a bit when we get to the main part of the video, I think will allow you to unlock transfers that look seamless, that look painted on as well, because that's ultimately the trick. So what we've got here is a really interesting set of pictures. So this person posted on Reddit. They essentially asked, can you rate my transfers for me? This is the first time that they've done them. And I suppose this video would be my kind of feedback to them. So hopefully they will take it in the vein of that. But this is a couple of years old now, so I don't know where this guy has got up to with his with his transfer knowledge. But you can see some of the common problems with transfers. So number one is, if you have a look at the first picture, the picture with the kind of the double-headed arrow, you can see that over the curved shoulder pad, it's not sitting flat. You've got some areas that are a little bit lumpy and bumpy, but also, and I think this is one of the critical things, is that you've got a shine on the actual transfer where there isn't a shine on the shoulder pad. The shoulder pad is a matte or satin finish, whereas the transfer, just by nature of the fact that it's transfers and decals are very glossy. So you don't want the two different finishes on your model. You want it all to be the same as if it's been painted on. And the same can be applied for the Deathwing symbol on the shoulder pad here, which is that we can quite clearly see on the back one at the back that you can see the ring around the outside, and it's even further enhanced by the glossiness of the decal against the matte of the Deathwing Terminator plate. Now, I really hope this person doesn't mind that I've used their images. They were on Reddit and they were asking for feedback. So as I say, this will hopefully be my way to feedback to them, and I'll link the video at the bottom. And I think this person is just starting out. So I think that if you've got experience of transfers, you might be further along the process than maybe this person is. And that's the thing, right? We just want to help each other to be able to get better at painting and get the desired outcomes, etc. So on the next images though, what I'm going to show you is how I'd expect transfers to look if they're realistic and they were painted on as well. So this is some of my work. The Kratos was done on the Kratos course that I ran in 2023. And what you can see with the transfers from the ruins and from the Sons of Horus symbol and the Roman numeral is that there's no line around the outside of those transfers. You can't see a line. And I've taken this not with a camera phone, but with a DSLR. So this is going to pick up on any details that you might not necessarily want to see. But there are no lines around these transfers, and they look painted on. The same can be said for the transfers on this White Scars bike. So if you look particularly at the snake's head, we've got chipping, because again we want it to look painted on. We don't want it to just be a sticker stuck on top. We've got to chip it, we've got to weather it, so you can see the underlying paint underneath. But also you cannot see a ring around the snake's head or the Hydra's head emblem, which is what we want. If we have a look at some bigger transfers though, so if we have a look at these Ultramarines decals here, you can see again we've got a big transfer that has some weathering, with the Ultima symbol, but it hasn't got the ring around the outside. And then same again on the Sakaran, we've got no rings around the outside of these transfers. And this is ultimately the step that we want to get to. This is what we want to create. This something that looks like this, where our decals, our transfers don't look stuck on. There's no ring around them, and they essentially look painted on and they look natural. So the process that I'm going to show you is the process that works for me. It's completely up to you whether you use it or not, but hopefully by watching the next process you'll learn something. So here we are. This is what we are going to create today. So you can see a transfer with no ring around it. It's not shiny. It's in keeping. It looks painted on. It's got battle damage over it. And that's what we want to aim for. That's what our transfers should always look like. No matter whether it's a clean project, whether it's a dirty project. Okay. And then if we have a look at our Imperial Fist, exactly the same. You've got a nice flat round transfer here. It's got some battle damage over it. It's got some scraping and chipping. You can see the yellow underneath. And this is exactly what I'm going to show you. And you can't see a ring around it either, which is the critical thing. This is going to be a long video, but it's going to go through the process completely. So you are going to need 2 rattle cans. You're going to need a gloss clear. I use Laquer clear from Halfords. And you're going to need this matte varnish from Winsor and Newton as well. Now both of these are excellent, and I specifically use these so it means that you guys don't need an airbrush to do this process. So I've not used an airbrush once in this process. So if you're airbrush free, this is going to be perfect for you. So we've got our spray painted white and spray painted yellow marine and door. We've got Microset and Microsol, which I really rate. We've got our transfer sheet, obviously. I'll be using an Imperial Fist transfer sheet a little bit later as well. But this one's obviously a World Eaters one. And then we've got our our chipping colours. So we've got white, yellow, and then we've got egg brown and a bit of sponge as well. Now, when you are cutting transfers, I would not recommend doing it with a pair of scissors at all. I'd recommend doing it with a sharp scalpel or a hobby knife. It will make less of a mess. You can be more precise with it as well. Now, the transfer sheets from old Forge World, what used to be Forge World, from GW, are of an excellent quality. There are not many transfers out there that are of this standard. These are, I've always found, really excellent. And the standard is pretty uniform across the range as well. And I would not recommend putting your transfers into a small bowl of water because you'll be fishing around with them for ages. What I'd recommend is putting them on a little Tupperware container tray, then a piece of kitchen roll, make it wet, and then put the transfer on top. And that means you're not fishing around for your transfer, and your transfer isn't completely soaked. One of the things that we want to try and keep is some of the glue underneath the transfer. That's obviously what's holding it in place. So doing this means that we won't wipe away all of the glue from our transfer. Now we're going to use Microset here. Now Microset is the blue one. It says 1 on it, number 1 on it, so you know which order we need to go in. And I've got a clean brush here. And what I'm doing is I'm just putting, after I've glossed the model, this is critical. So after I've glossed the model completely, you can see it's super shiny. I'm laying the transfer over the top of the Microset. Now we gloss the model so the transfer is able to sit smoothly over it. If you think about a rattle can, sometimes you can see, if you look closely, that rattle cans can be quite rough and scratchy. The same with an airbrush, the same with when we use a hairy brush. It's very rare that we can get very smooth surfaces. What a gloss varnish does is it makes the area smooth. And what I like about the car lacquer is it makes it super smooth. That just allows or stops little tiny air bubbles from appearing underneath our transfer. It just allows it to sit smoothly, which is why I'd always recommend putting your transfer over something that you have gloss varnish. Now we'll bring that gloss, we'll take away that gloss later, and we'll bring a matte finish to it overall. And what you can also see, because it's super smooth, you can see I'm able to make tiny adjustments with a hobby knife. I wouldn't recommend doing this with a brush. You'll have more control using a hobby knife. But the same process for the marine as we're using here for this door. We want to use the Microset first. You can see me just wiping some Microset onto it, take our transfer and then place it where we want to, and then we make tiny adjustments using a hobby knife rather than the brush. Okay, you'll be way more precise. Now I've left this for about 10 minutes. Okay, now you'll see in a moment that actually it's not fully set. That's okay because it's starting to get there. And what I'm doing is I'm using Microsol. Now Microsol has number 2 on it. You can see that I just jogged that 12 Roman numeral there, so just push it back where it needs to be, and I'm dipping a cotton wool bud into the Microsol and I'm just pressing it down. Now what this does is it allows us to get rid of any air bubbles underneath it, allows us to push it down. It's obviously soaked. It's better than a brush, I've found. You might have found differently, but I have found that it's better than using a brush. And then we can just press this down. Now this does take a little bit of time to work. In fact, I left this once I did the kind of first couple of layers. I left this and then made my lunch, ate lunch for maybe 45 minutes, then came back and it was all good to go. So this process takes about 45 minutes. So yeah, have something in between you putting the transfers on and leaving them. And you can see me just going back onto the door and just rolling it over, getting rid of all those air bubbles. Now what you can see here, just the light is picking up, there are tiny few air bubbles in there, and I'm just going to prick them with a hobby knife. So even using a gloss varnish, we can't avoid them. So imagine what that would be like if we used a rough surface. Okay, so just pick up those, just prick those tiny little air bubbles, and then we do exactly the same as we did before. We use our Microsol and we go over it with a cotton wool bud dipped in Microsol, and then that will help it to be flat. Now this is also a great technique if you put a transfer over rivets. There's lots of occasions where we put transfer over rivets, and often we get an air bubble over rivets that look unsightly, and if we just leave them, they don't look very nice. So if you just pop the rivet or pop over the rivet, get rid of the air bubble, and it will look really smooth. And you can see here, this has been left for 45 minutes. It is dead smooth now because we've used that gloss varnish. All right. Now we're going to add a little bit of battle damage to it, and we're going to add white. Remember, this is a painted on kind of insignia. It's not a sticker over the top of our vehicle. We can't make our vehicle all battle damaged and not the transfer. It all needs to be in keeping with one another. So this is the order that we do it in. And then we're going to use demonic yellow, and then exactly the same. We're just going to sponge on some demonic yellow just to show where the paintwork from the transfer has just started to scratch away. But you can see here the transfers are already dead smooth. We just need to get rid of the ring around them, which is visible when it's in the hand. We're going to use oak brown next, which is an RP Painter paint, but you could use any kind of brown that you wanted to. You could use a grey for this kind of chipping. Rhinox hide is really good. Burnt umber from AK is really good. I'm using oak brown. You know how much I love RP Painter paints. What I'm doing is I'm just picking up the edges and making kind of scratches as well. So sponge is a great tool. It's not just for sponging on, but we can drag it across and make some really interesting patterns. This kind of negative edge highlighting is also great on white as well, so we don't have to edge highlight with white. Very difficult on a pure white primer as well to edge highlight with white. And what you can see me doing here is just making some bigger scratches with the oak brown. And this is where I'm going to have my streaking coming down. And having a scratch or two over the top of the transfer also makes it look more realistic as well, just where it's kind of a scratch that's been gouged so deep into the hull of the vehicle, it's even gone through the paintwork of the decal or the insignia and the paintwork underneath as well. And then just for demonstration purposes, exactly the same scenario with our Imperial Fist Mini. We just add battle damage here and there all over on the transfer as well. And then we gloss lacquer it again. So we need to protect everything that's happened so far. So we gloss lacquer again, which means that our transfer, our nice smooth transfer, is under another layer of gloss varnish, and all the battle damage is under a layer of gloss varnish, which is going to be critical for the next stage, where we're going to be using some white spirit. Now, white spirit is of course quite harsh on acrylic paints, but it's okay because we've used a gloss lacquer, we've used a car lacquer on our model now, and it's going to protect it. We're going to use an old manky brush, and we're going to use some oil paints as well. I love Winsor and Newton oil paints. I really recommend them. They are a high grade, high quality oil paint, and burnt umber is a must. If you're going to get any one or practice with any one, I'd recommend burnt umber. And I've just got a Tupperware container here, and then what I'm going to do is mix a little bit of white spirit with our oil paint. Now you could use Sansador. I just find Sansador takes about 24 hours to dry, and it's way too long. This took minutes to dry because I didn't use a lot of it. And you can see here, because we've also gloss varnished it, the capillary action, and by that I just mean the oils just go into all the nooks and crannies and the crevices just naturally because that area is so smooth. Okay, so that's another reason why we want to use a gloss varnish here. So we just pick out any areas, and the good thing is we can wipe this away if we go wrong. So if there's bits where we just find that actually we've used a little bit too much, we can use a cotton wool bud dipped in clean white spirit, and then we can just wipe that away like so. And exactly the same for the marine. You often have to clean up marines a little bit more, and you can just see me wiping away for all the excess, anywhere that looks unsightly. And this is great. We can't do this with Nuln Oil or Agrax or other washes, but we can do it with oils because they've got quite a long time before they can completely set and dry. I would say though that oils that have been left 12 to 24 hours become more stubborn, and it's harder to then remove them. So we're going to use Cadmium Orange, amazing paint, on oil paint, and we're going to mix it with the burnt umber. Now this makes a great rust effect, but it also means that you could have different tones of rust. So you could have a very, very orange rust, you could have a more brown rust, something in the middle like I've just created here with a 50-50 mix. So I'd recommend, rather than go for something like raw sienna, get these two, and that means you can play around with what tones of rust that you want. And I'm just essentially putting this on neat, this mixture, on places where I know I want the top of rust streaking to, or the top of rust streaks to be. Okay, so the top of the scratches, any kind of rivets, any panel lining, all those kind of areas you can pick out. And then, I'm just putting a few dots here and there where there are scratches. Then I'm going to use a fan brush. Now this is literally called a fan brush. It says fan on it. It's a Dowler and Rowney fan brush. Looks like this. I'd be lost without this. And it's called Fan Simply, and it's a 2/0. Really, really useful tool. Lots of companies make other versions. Rosemary & Co, Ammo make them. I just use this one. I picked it up one day from a hobby shop and I've never looked back. It's excellent. We dip it in white spirit, wipe away the excess, and you can see me just very, very slowly dragging it down, forming those rust streaks. So we drag it down, lift it off, drag it down, lift it off. And you can see here, it starts to create a natural rust effect, or a natural kind of streaking effect. Now it's up to you whether you want it to be rusty, whether you just want it to be grimy. If you use light coloured oils, it could be more like rain streaks, for example. Okay, so there's loads of things we can do with oils. They're really, really versatile. If we go wrong, we can always wipe them away, like you saw there, and also we can correct any mistakes. Sometimes the rust streaks you might do might be slightly odd angles, so you might just need to straighten them up. And you can see, because we've glossed the area, we can just wipe them away, wick them away, change them. And you can see I wasn't happy here, so what I'm doing is I'm just wiping it away, and you'd never know that it was there because we've used that gloss varnish. So that's really, really critical. Really recommend picking up that Halfords car lacquer. It's quality stuff. You could use just a normal gloss varnish if you want to, but if you think about the amount of commissions that I do in one go, I've always got 40 marines on the table, so speed is important. We're going to use a matte varnish, Winsor and Newton. Excellent matte varnish, and you can see here this has actually been sprayed with our matte varnish now, and that's sealed in everything. And you can see me just painting the black vent in here. I'd really recommend going that extra length and painting in any black vents. And this is it. It's finished. Because we matte varnished everything down, the shininess of our transfer has disappeared. The transfer is completely flat. We haven't got a ring around the transfer as well, and it looks painted on, and it looks very, very natural with all that battle damage over the top of it as well. If we go over to the Imperial Fists, which is just coming up, we've got exactly the same. Nice and flat, realistic, no ring around the outside as well. I really hope this has been a useful video for you. I hope it's taught you something, and I hope that you will pick up some of the items within the video as well. I really hope that these videos are useful for everybody. You know, I've really tried to aim this video at people who are beginners mainly, or people who don't have an airbrush. But many of these things can be utilised if you do have an airbrush. You know, you can use a gloss varnish through the airbrush if you want to. You can use a matte spray if you want to through the airbrush. But these are just some things that work for me. Now, what I don't want as well is kind of arguments in the comments that essentially go, no, that's wrong. Well, I mean, I think personally the results speak for themselves. You know, you have a look at how the transfer sits, you have a look at how it sits on a curved shoulder pad, and remember that round Imperial Fists transfer, to get that flat and smooth is actually pretty tricky. That's no mean feat to do, to get it round and flat and smooth. You know, that's a tough thing to achieve for many hobbyists. So I would really recommend doing it this way. But of course, if you've got an alternate way, then put it in the comments below and let me know. As I always say, if you found the video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it if you subscribe as well, because I'm trying to grow the channel at the moment. Over 2024, I'm really going to try and grow the channel to be bigger and bigger. And as I always say with these videos, you know, there's no A and B reel. They're simple. They are videos for people who want to improve their painting. They're not, you know, I guess they're not entertainment. They're for people who want to learn and to get better with their painting and master their painting as well. Take care, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.